You ever have one of those mornings where everything just feels right? The air's cool, the sun hits the windows just right, and for a moment, life feels calm. That was me, that Saturday morning. The smell of fresh coffee filled my kitchen, the birds outside were singing like they had no worries, and I actually thought, maybe today's gonna be a good day. I had no idea how wrong I was, because 10 minutes later, that peace shattered literally. 1 second I was sipping my second cup of coffee, the next, a silver Jeep came crashing through my brick wall like a missile. The sound was deafening, like a thunderclap mixed with an explosion. My whole house shook. I froze for a second, my heart hammering in my chest. When I rushed outside, what I saw made my jaw drop. Half my front wall was gone, smoke rising from the wreck, and in the middle of it, a silver Jeep, its front end buried in bricks. Behind the wheel was a girl, maybe 19, 20 at most. Her face was ghost white, her hands gripping the steering wheel like her life depended on it. I ran over shouting, "Are you okay?" But before I could even finish, she looked at me wide-eyed and said something I'll never forget. That wall shouldn't have been there. I blinked, confused. What? That's when it clicked. I knew exactly who she was. She was Emily, the daughter of Karen, my next-door neighbor, and the self-appointed queen of the HOA, the same woman who once called the city because she thought my mailbox was too close to the curb. The same woman who complained that my dog barked too joyfully. Yeah, that Karen. And apparently, her daughter had been trying to turn into her driveway, but instead of braking, she hit the gas and slammed straight into my wall. And before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories like this. Within minutes, Karen came storming out of her house, wearing a robe, slippers, and a look that could curdle milk. Her phone was already out, camera rolling like she was filming a documentary. "This wall shouldn't be this close to the street," she yelled. "You're liable for this damage." I stared at her in disbelief. Liable? Your daughter crashed into my wall. But Karen wasn't backing down. She started shouting for her daughter to film everything: my wall, my house, even me. "This is unsafe construction," she said, waving her phone like it was a badge. "I've warned the neighborhood about this." I stood there, trying to keep my cool as she screamed about zoning laws she clearly didn't understand. When the police arrived, Karen turned on the tears, spinning a story so dramatic it could have won an Oscar. According to her, my illegally placed wall was built too close to the road and caused her daughter's near-death experience. The officer took notes, asked for our statements, and gave me that sympathetic look people give when they know you're about to have a bad few weeks. And man, he was right. Because that crash? That was just the beginning. A week later, when I thought the whole mess was behind me, I got a letter in the mail, a thick cream-colored envelope with my name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a notice of legal action. Karen's daughter Emily was suing me. I actually laughed when I read it, at least until I saw the amount. $25,000. They were claiming property damage, emotional distress, and get this unsafe residential design. My so-called poorly constructed and dangerously positioned wall had apparently posed a foreseeable hazard to drivers entering adjacent properties. I couldn't believe it. Karen wasn't just being dramatic this time, she was being strategic. She had actually turned her daughter's mistake into a full-blown lawsuit. That same day, I called my lawyer Martina.com. Level-headed guy I'd worked with years ago during a small property dispute. I told him everything. He asked for pictures, police reports, and the city permits for my wall. Luckily, I'm the kind of guy who keeps every important document in a folder. When Martin saw the permits, he smiled and said, "You're fine." That wall was inspected and approved by the city. Karen's wasting her money. His confidence calmed me down a bit, but I still had a knot in my stomach. Meanwhile, Karen was acting like she'd already won. She was telling everyone in the neighborhood that I was finally going to be held accountable. She even posted about it on Facebook, writing, "Some people think they can ignore the law until karma hits them," literally. The comments section turned into a circus. Some neighbors defended me. Others said things like, "I always wondered if that wall was legal." Karen loved the attention. 3 weeks later, the court date arrived. I showed up early, folder in hand, stomach in knots. The courthouse was small, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. I spotted Karen and Emily sitting across the hall. Karen looked like she was headed to a red carpet event, pearls, oversized sunglasses, and a smug smile. Emily, on the other hand, looked like she wanted to vanish. Her lawyer, a young guy who looked barely out of law school, was flipping nervously through his folder. When Martin showed up, calm as ever, he gave me a nod. "Don't worry," he said. "We've got everything we need." When the judge, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, called us in, the tension in the room was thick. Karen's lawyer started his opening statement, but Karen couldn't help herself. She jumped in, interrupting him every few seconds to add dramatic details. She claimed my wall was a death trap, and that her daughter was traumatized for life. She waved her arms, sighed loudly, and even started tearing up mid-sentence. The judge's patience was thinning fast. Then it was Martin's turn. He stood up slowly, calm as a lake. "Your Honor," he said, "the defendant's wall is completely legal, fully permitted, and structurally sound. What we have here is not a zoning issue, it's a driver error issue. Then he pressed play on a small USB drive connected to the courtroom monitor. The security footage started rolling, and suddenly the room went silent. There it was, crystal clear video of Emily's Jeep speeding toward my house. You could see her hesitate, then slam the gas instead of the brake. The impact was unmistakable. Karen's face drained of color. The judge leaned forward. "That's your daughter?" she asked. Karen fumbled for words. "Well, yes, but that footage doesn't show everything." There was glare on the windshield. Martin smiled slightly. "We can slow it down, Your Honor." Frame by frame, it showed Emily's face, clearly seeing the road. No glare, just panic and a bad decision. When it ended, even Karen's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. But Karen wasn't done embarrassing herself. She stood up again, even as her lawyer tried to stop her. "Your Honor," she said, "that footage is misleading. The defendant edited it to make my daughter look reckless." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Are you accusing the defendant of tampering with evidence?" Karen's confidence wavered. "Well, not exactly tampering, but it's suspicious." Martin calmly flipped open a folder. "Your Honor, the footage was pulled directly from the defendant's home security system and verified by the responding officer. We even have the officer's written statement confirming its authenticity." The judge nodded. "Noted." Then she looked at Karen. "Do you have any proof that the video was altered?" Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a wrinkled printout. "This," she said proudly. It was a blurry screenshot from Facebook showing the Jeep halfway through the wall. "This one looks different." The judge stared at her for a long moment, then said flatly, "That's a Facebook post." Laughter rippled through the courtroom. Even the bailiff had to cough to hide his grin. When the noise settled, the judge delivered her ruling. "Based on the evidence presented," she said, "the court finds that the defendant is not liable for damages. The wall was legally constructed and inspected, and the plaintiff's damages were caused by her own negligence." Karen looked stunned, frozen in her seat. Emily buried her face in her hands. Martin gave me a small nod. "We'd won." But then the judge added, "Furthermore, due to the baseless nature of this claim, the plaintiff is ordered to reimburse the defendant for legal costs." You could hear a pin drop. Karen's jaw dropped open. "Excuse me, we have to pay him?" The judge didn't even glance up. "That's correct. Maybe next time you'll take responsibility instead of assigning blame." And just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, Karen stormed past me without a word, clutching her purse like it was full of regrets. Emily followed quietly behind. For the first time since that crash, Karen didn't have a single thing to say, and honestly, that silence was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. A week later, a check arrived in the mail for my legal fees. My wall was repaired, standing stronger than ever. As I stood there looking at that fresh brickwork, coffee in hand, the birds chirping again, I couldn't help but smile. Some walls aren't just made of stone. They're built on boundaries that people like Karen will never understand.